Here at the Giver Marketing Network, we don't leave you drifting out in space. We connect you to a coach who will help you build and grow your marketing business. Our process acts as a guide on how to connect with other businesses, maintain good relations, and establish a presence on the Giver Marketing Network. Each member within this collaborative group will have the opportunity to leverage your talent and influence, a true network effect. If you are looking to collaborate on more projects, welcome to the Giver Marketing Network, the most trusted and highest rated collective of specialists on the planet. Here we have a group of like-minded professionals who focus on making valuable introductions and helping each other grow by teaming up. Imagine Upwork meets a network and a coach. The talent collectively includes services like visibility and SEO, creating logos, designing websites, managing social media, outreach messaging, visual storytelling, and much more. Think of what you could do with laser-focused allies, strengthening your business while offering your talents to the entire network. Click near this video for more information.
Hello, and welcome to another Giver Marketing broadcast. I'm Christine Deane, Team Director at Giver Marketing, and just big shout out to all our partners out there. Prepared Group, Selling with Dignity, Entrepreneurs Community. We have so many places that we're broadcasting to. Why? Because we love to help and give back. So we're all about helping you improve your marketing, improve your business, improve your visibility. There is so much to do when it comes with marketing, and we know it's a lot for a business owner to really absorb all the expectations that are placed on you. So we love to give back every Tuesday, just bringing up new marketing topics that we think are going to help you further your business or your organization. So I am really excited today. We're going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is the customer, right? If you're thinking about, gosh, I'm doing all this work, but I don't feel like I'm really reaching my real person. How well do you know your customer and who you're really trying to talk to? So let's talk a little bit about that today. And so I'm going to pull up some slides real quick and away we go. Let's take a look at defining your customer persona. And you're thinking, okay, big words. What does that really mean? Okay. Think about how clearly you're defining who it is that you're trying to reach out to, right? When you can really identify who that is and you can reach out to them in a way that they can relate to, right? Now you're unlocking those opportunities for your business that didn't exist before. You can say, oh, but I know my audience. Do you? Let's take a deeper dive and take another look at this. Okay. So as we take a look at your persona for your customer, who is your ideal client, right? And I want to dive into that. My background is communications. So I am a former college professor. I taught communications. This is kind of my sweet space, was always talking about who's your audience. One of the things I did was I coached the speech and debate team, who had some award-winning teams and wonderful performers. But really what it boils down to is knowing your audience. And that's true for all forms of communication, right? For this broadcast, I'm out there talking to other marketers perhaps and business owners, right? Knowing your audience really is key to your success for anything that you do. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time talking and nobody's listening, right? So once again, I mentioned I'm the team director at Giver Marketing, founder of the Networking Diva. It's all about communications. And so I love to just be able to love on you and share my expertise. And hopefully this will help somebody today with connecting with their audience, because you've got a bigger dream. So whatever that dream is, we want to help amplify that and make that bigger. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of clearly defining your customer persona. Okay, one of the things we're going to focus on is kind of segmenting your audience. That's an important part of this. And building that psychographic profile out for them. And then we're going to explore a little deeper into the day in the life of your ideal customer, okay? So go on this journey with me. This is where we're talking about. So as you can dive into these, each one of these is really going to help you dial in, and it's going to drive people to you because you're really talking to your targeted market, right? You're personalizing the customer experience, and ultimately it's going to lead to your business success. So let's dive into this a little bit more. All right. When we talk about segmenting your audience. Okay, I have an audience. How many segments am I supposed to break it down into, right? Well, this can get really complicated. When you think about it, you're going to break it down into demographics, you're going to break it down into their behaviors, their pain points, right? So you can develop your targeted messages specifically for who they are. This way it really resonates with them and they go, oh, you have the answer to my problems. Yes, somebody out there is looking for you. That's whole concept is to send your message in a way that they realize that you're the one that can help them. So as we dive into those effective strategies to kind of segment your audience, I want you to kind of keep that in mind. Okay, who is it that I'm really trying to appeal to? So let's dive in a little bit deeper from here. All right, when we talk about your demographics, all right, this is a long list, right? You think about, okay, how old are they? Their gender, income, location, all this plays into it, right? You really need to know who that person is that wants what you have. When you think about your audience and you go, oh, I have skincare. Anybody with skin is my audience. Okay, potentially yes. However, there's probably certain ones that are more likely to be interested, right? When we look at age, we're like, oh, as we get older, we want to maintain, right? So I could see something age specific. Right? You talk about gender. Okay, a lot of guys, okay, I use soap, maybe I put some lotion on if it was really bad and I'm out the door, right? So you know your audience, right? Is it income based? Right? Is this a product that is so expensive that it's going to appeal more to a certain audience than another? Right? Are you pricing your products at the right price point for your ideal client? Right? The location, right? I'm in Texas, so Texas is its own culture, and so areas have their own culture. So you need to know the culture of the area. Right? Any other demographic data that might have an impact on who they are. Right? So when you think about your ideal client, right, how old are they? What makes sense for your business? Right? I was just thinking about skincare I mentioned. So if they were younger, right, maybe it's an acne issue, right? So maybe that's what it is. So you really need to dive deep and just start with the demographics to start with. Start kind of building out who that is. And what you're going to find is that your demographics probably change based on your product, right? Or on your service. So you really want to make sure that it's in alignment. So you're probably going to need to create several audiences, right? So think about, what am I telling this audience versus this audience? What makes them different? Are they differentiated by their age? Are they differentiated by the services that they want? Are they going to like certain products more or less that you have? Right? What do you need to do? And a lot of times we worry about, am I segmenting too much? Right? Well, if I say that and I go for my real client, then what if I alienate those other people? It's okay, right? Focus. The more you focus down on who your real audience is, the better your results are going to be, because they say if everybody's your audience, nobody's your audience, because nobody's paying attention. You really want to tailor that message specifically to who it is that you want to reach out to. Okay, so it makes sense, right? Are you following me so far? Okay, as we move on, let's dive a little bit more into segmenting your audience. Let's talk about behavior patterns. When we think about the behavior patterns of your audience, you really need to dive in deep. What's their online behaviors right now? Shopping online, buying online, ordering online, right? That's a big part of our culture now. That wasn't always the case, but now it is. So you really need to be paying attention to that. Whether you're a brick and mortar business or whether you're completely online, both have an impact. They're both looking for you online. Think about the last time you tried a new restaurant, right? A lot of times you'll check the reviews first before you even go, right? So think about your online presence, what they're doing. So if you're let's take that for an example. If you're a restaurant, right, and you're thinking about what are the online behaviors, well, they're probably looking to see reviews. Is this a good place? What's the service like? What's the price point, right? They're probably looking at your menu. Right. So you need to know what are their online behaviors so that you can make sure you're ready to meet those needs. So keep that in mind. Now, what's their purchase history? Okay, let's dive into a little deeper. Like, why would that matter? So if you have somebody that's already purchased 3 products from you, and then you're coming out with something new, do you think they're going to be a good audience for that? Chances are, if it's somewhere in the same genre of what you had before, they'll probably be interested in it, right? They already know you. They already have bought from you several times. There's already a level of loyalty there. There's a level of expectation that, oh, I know they do good products or good services because I've worked with them in the past, right? I trust them, right? So if you're looking at their purchase history, when you can see who's already purchased from you, chances are this is a hot audience. They know you. You've already have that rapport established with them. So you're going to want to know who that is because you have a better chance of them purchasing, right? Content engagement, that's another one. So think about who's in there playing with your content. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, we talk about interacting with your brand, your content. Follows and likes do not necessarily convert to sales. So I have people come, oh, I want to have all these followers. Okay, you can have a lot of followers. You can build that up if that's important to you, but that doesn't always translate to business. So you need to understand I call them vanity metrics. They look good, but they may not necessarily bring in a lot of money. So you really need to make sure that you can have the visibility, but you want to make sure that there's substance, and you want to make sure that you've got a system for converting your audience. Because a large following of 100,000, the only place you might be making, and really that's not that big when you think of the big scheme, right? But the only place you're going to make money on that probably might be product endorsements you'll see the influencers do, or perhaps they are making money off the monetization of their videos, right? Because Facebook has a influencer program where I get paid every month. YouTube, right? Monetizing your YouTube channel. So there's things like that. So it's not that you can't make money, but you're going to have to build it really big to make that money. And meantime, you may not be selling as many products. You can't. Now you have to have a really active audience, right? So if you're going to plan on doing that content engagement, interacting with your brand, those are great things, but you need to have a plan on how you're going to convert them. So following me so far? I hope so. If you run into questions as I go ahead and drop those in the chat, and I'll try and respond to them for you. We'll get to as many as we can. So I really want you to think about what are the behaviors of my customer persona, right? So what are they doing? If it is adults, are they hanging out online? Are they buying your stuff? And actually, if you've run ads before, for example, with Facebook, they know the secret sauce behind everybody. So they know who is more likely to click on something. People are more likely to watch videos, right? So they actually can tune the ads to go toward that very specific behavior. You can choose behaviors that you're wanting. So there's some advantages to running those kinds of ads because you can dial in on exactly who you want. So these are good things to know, but you're going to have to do some research to find out these answers, right? So pay attention, right? And find out who your real audience is. What are they doing? Not only are their age and gender and those statistics, how old, and you also want to think about, well, what is it that they're doing, right? Pay attention to their behaviors. Are they big buyers? Are they not big buyers? What's going on with them? Okay, as we move into segmenting onto the pain points, right? This is huge. So when we think about your pain points and challenges for your customers, right, you need to really dive in. What is their problem? Right. And you might dive deeper than that. Some of the questions like the whys, they talk about the 5 whys theory. Why is this a problem? Well, and so once again, who cares? Why is that a problem? You have to dive deeper until you really find the root of it and what the real problem is that they're dealing with. Right? What are their frustrations? What kind of obstacles are they being challenged with? And then how do your services solve those problems? Right. So if you have multiple services, and I'm going to just take my business, for example, let's say with the Networking Diva, I tend to work with almost exclusively the do-gooders is how I phrase it. So it's people that are doing good in the world and they're having difficulty maybe reaching their ideal client. Maybe they're having a hard problem with visibility. Maybe they're having a hard time getting their communities ignited. So if I were to look at this and say, okay, here's their problems, right? How do I solve those problems? What are they frustrated? Now, knowing your audience, now we're going to take these pain points. Now we're going to add in the other things that we talked about. So I might be talking to someone who's let's say a leader of an organization, okay, and they're trying to get the word out more for their networking group, okay. So I can look at them and say, okay, so here's the problem. You're wanting greater visibility. Okay, let's talk about your audience specifically. What's their age? What are they doing? What are they looking for? Right, and let's dial in specifically for that exact audience. Right, so we really want to apply that in that particular situation. So you can't just do one core. One level isn't deep enough, right? So who is your ideal client? Okay, so do you have an older group? Is it a mature group? Is it all people who've been in business over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? Where they're at in their business is going to be different on how you're going to help them, right? So you really want to dial it in specifically for your audience, applying all this. And I know it's a lot to be able to track, but your solutions are going to be different depending on who they are. For example, when I'm working with a coach or an author, their problems starting out might be they're a startup, right? And it's expensive to be a startup, right? You didn't think, okay, well, I need a website. Okay, well, how much is that going to cost? It can cost you, a couple $100 on Fiverr to thousands of dollars and more, depending on how custom it is, right? So the startup cost can be really expensive for a business. Well, so one of my solutions is a lower end solution, right? $40 a month, AI designed your website, right? There's a great solution there. You can have a professional email for like $3 a month, right? They'll host it for you. So, that is a great price point for a solopreneur, someone who's just starting out, needs to start somewhere and doesn't have necessarily thousands of dollars to invest in a WordPress site, right? Or something fancy. So my higher end clients that are ready, they're established, are like, I need a rebrand, it's been a while since I've designed my website. I think I need a refresh, right? So maybe they're in a position where they can invest more money. So knowing my audience, knowing where they're at income wise, knowing what their goals are, right? I can kind of gear them to the right solutions. So if you've got solutions that can hit multiple pain points or multiple levels, right? So you're going to gear that differently. I'm probably not going to approach the high-end business that are making, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars a year. Here, you can have your website designed by AI and it only costs you $40 a month. They're probably going to look at me like, I think I need something a little more custom, advanced, and lots more bells and whistles, right? And that's fine, right? But you got to know your audience so you know where you can help them, right? So think about when you're segmenting your audience, what do they need? How can I help them? And really dial in. As we talked about, you may have more than one customer persona, and that's okay. Build them out. Who are they? For every product that you sell, for every service that you offer, take the time to kind of dial in and say, who is my ideal customer here? Who is it that really wants what I have to give? So just take the time and kind of start thinking that way. Okay. So as we take a look at that and we think about, okay, I've got all that. Now there's more. Wait, as if that wasn't enough. We're going to dive into the building the psychographic profiles. So we've seen segmenting your audience is really helpful. Now we're moving to the psychographic. You're like, okay, what's the psychobabble stuff you're talking about? All right, we're going to take a closer look at your customers' values, interests, lifestyle, decision-making processes, because now you can really round out that customer persona. Okay, so let's dive in a little deeper. So when we talk about the psychographic factors, okay, so values and beliefs. Stop for a moment and think about your audience. For me, I work with a lot of do-gooders. That's my space. I say anybody can market your widgets, but that's not me, right? I focus specifically on those that are on a mission to do well in the world. They want to help improve things. They want to make the world a better place. They want to help rise people up, right? Sometimes it's coaches, authors, speakers. Other times it's nonprofits. It's businesses with a mission to do good. Right. So when you look at that, well, what do you think their values and beliefs are, right? We believe in, value of human life, the value of helping people, right? The belief system is everybody's worthy and deserves to get help, right? So when you start thinking about who is that, right? So there's going to be philosophies on how you approach things that are going to make sense and resonate with your audience. I had somebody in a meeting recently who was talking about how they chose not to work with somebody because they didn't feel like their values were in alignment. They're like, yes, I can do marketing for anybody. However, our values were in alignment and I didn't feel comfortable representing them. It's like, ooh, there you go. So staying true to your core, right? So whoever you are, you want to make sure you're partnering up with somebody that's true to your values. It's going to make the whole experience so much more enjoyable. And you want to make sure that you're appealing to that particular audience. So I do a lot within the faith-based space also. So, I hardly have that declaimed on my marketing, right? This way people know this is a safe space for that. You really want to get to know that audience so you can appeal to them in a way that makes sense to them. Right? What are their interests, right? What are their hobbies? What are they doing when they're not doing what it is that you're helping them with? Or maybe you are helping them with a hobby or one of their interests, right? So build out that wider person. Okay, so if we're talking about, let's just run with it. I thought I taught college, so that space of the young 20s, late teens is a space that I'm familiar with. So if we're looking at, okay, values, probably more innovative, they're probably comfortable, their attitude towards technology is good, right? They're feeling interests and hobbies, that younger age, right? I don't spend a lot of time at clubs anymore. I don't really go dancing at clubs in that place that you normally find me anymore. But when I was younger, you did, right? So you can pay attention to what's going on with that demographic. Where are they interested? And what kind of hobbies are they doing? Or is it the older generation, right? We're seeing pickleball. That might not be huge amongst the younger generation. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But think about, right, what are they doing? What are they interested in? Because a lot of times the marketing will go along with that. So kind of keep that in mind. Right? What are their lifestyle like? Their daily routines. If you can dive into that, you're really starting to understand your audience and what's going to appeal them. If you think about where you put advertising, right? Putting it something that has something to do with their lifestyle, their hobbies. If you've ever seen advertisements on the inside of a stall in a bathroom, right? You got to know your audience. But you think about their lifestyle. I know my kids will text me rather than having a phone call, right? We will text back and forth for 30 minutes when it could have been all been taken care of in a 5-minute phone call. They're the texting generation, right? So knowing that they're going to feel more comfortable with that, that's their space, right? Whereas somebody who's older and isn't quite as tech savvy would be like, oh, another text message. You want me to do what on my phone? How? Right. Whereas at the next generation, they're expecting that, right? They expect a QR code. They expect to be able to sign in, boom, 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 solve that problem without ever talking to anybody, whatever that problem is. So you might want to look at what that process looks like online for your clients, right? So you got to know what they're doing and what they're up to. Okay, so you can kind of round out who they are and think about the best way to work with them. So I want you to really kind of take that whole demographics, add it into the psychographics. This gets really confusing, right? It's a lot to analyze. Right? Now, other things to keep in mind with your psychographic factors, right? What's their preferred method of communication? I know we just kind of hit on the texting side of it, right? What are their channels? And I say channels, what are their social media platforms that they want to hang out on, right? A lot of times the younger generation is hanging out on, let's say, Instagram, for example. Facebook's a little bit older generation, right? LinkedIn is where your professionals are. And then there's some new platforms. And it's okay to explore those new platforms. See if your audience is there, whether that's Rumble or YouTube is like the second largest searched area. And I'm sure that's going to change as AI keeps evolving. Right? But think about where they hang out. This way you can make sure you're hanging out where your ideal client is hanging out. It just makes sense, right? What's the tone they're expecting? Is it playful? Is it more formal? Is it right? When you talk to someone who is older and more mature, a lot of times it's not like, hey, man, what's up? That's probably not what they're looking for unless they're really going for that younger vibe. But for the younger generation, they're like, hey, I'm good. What you up to? Right. So staying in the right tone and adjusting your messaging for that specific audience. You really need to make sure that you're resonating with your customer, whoever that is, whatever that customer persona. And it's liable to change depending on who it is. Right. So as we're developing this out for our different products and services, really dial in, where do I need to be at? Where do I need to be hanging out? Who do I need to be appealing to? So dial in on that. Now, let's dive even more. So let's talk about their psychographic factors of exploring their decision-making process. What? Right. So think about your audience. Are they more likely to do impulse buys? Are they like, oh, yeah, totally, that works for me. Boom. and they make their decision quickly, they're impulsive, right? Or is your product more prone to encouraging that kind of impulsive behavior? Or is it something that's more geared towards the audience that is more thoughtful? And we were talking recently about an audience of CPAs. And so it's like, well, they tend to be pretty conservative, right? So a slideshow that had glitter and sparkles and moving objects and things exploding would be like, are you serious? So you got to know your audience, who they are. How do they make their decisions? Are they more calm? Are they going to go through and do thorough research on this? Is it it's something they're going to decide quickly? How much information do they need? Right. So you really need to think about how are they making that decision, because you need to make sure that you can meet their needs in order to get them to purchase, buy, invest in whatever it is that you've got. Right. So if it's your ideal audience needs more information, then you better have a whole bunch of stuff that they can go and read and look at, right? A nice drip campaign that informs them of the process, how things work, an FAQ section that's well thought out, right? So you need to think about what's my audience's, my ideal customer, what are they expecting? So that you can give them what they need, right? Uncover those factors that influence your customers when they're considering a purchase or making a decision. Whatever that is, you got to be ready to answer that. What are their objections going to be? You need to think ahead, right? What are they concerned with? So really dialing in as you start realizing how complex this is, you start thinking, maybe I don't know my audience as well as I think I do. So go through and start creating those customer personas, because it's really going to impact how you talk to them, where you talk to them, why you talk to them. Right? It's going to have an overall impact on all of that. So it's really, you want to start deep diving into that. Okay, so as if there wasn't enough to think about, there's more. Yes, this is like one of those infomercials. Are you ready? So if we explore a day in the life of your customer persona, and you got to do this for each of your customer personas, right? What does their routine look like? What do they do in the morning? Are they waking up early? Do they tend to sleep in late? Right? I know with my kids in their teenage phase, if it was summer vacation, forget it. They were not up at the crack of dawn. That was for sure. Right? Who's your audience? And I know with my dad, he'd be like, wake up at 4 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. So I just get up and go to work. I was like, oh my goodness, Dad, that's really early to go to work, but okay. Right. So are they early risers? Are the first thing they do check their social media? And there's a whole generation that does that. I'm guilty of that sometimes too. I usually am putting out fires with clients already. Right. So what's the first thing they do when they wake up? Do they start their day off with a nutritional breakfast, or are they running out the door? Right. And that might have an impact on your business. If you are Starbucks and coffee or a coffee shop, right? Are you prepared for people running in and running out real quick, understanding in the morning that they're in a hurry? I mean, do you have a place for those that aren't in a hurry and want to settle in for a little bit and schmooze a little bit? Right. So think about what's their morning routine and how does that impact with your product at all? And it may or may not have a huge impact, but it might. So you might want to look at it. For example, if you put out a newsletter, when are they awake? Are they up early in the morning? Should your newsletter be going out at 6 or 5 a.m. so it's waiting for them when they wake up and check their messages? Or is it something where they're more likely to read it in the evening at the end of the day as they're relaxing in the evening or right before bed, right? So getting to know your audience and what they're doing at what time of day really helps you dial in on the best time to make those decisions. Another way to look at that is, for example, if you've got a newsletter going out, look at the open rates at the what time. See when they're actually opening it. And you might find that there's a pattern. So pay attention to those. That's where all those demographics and numbers and stats come into play. So you got to have somebody looking at your stats so you can figure some of this out sometimes. Now, if we look at the day in life of your customer, right, are they commuting to work? They might be people that go drive into the office every day. Are they navigating the traffic, right? Public transportation, there's a difference. So for example, if you're in New York and you're riding the subway in the morning, well, maybe you have time to sit there and check your messages in the morning, right? If you're actually on the road, then hopefully you're not checking your messages while you're driving, but I've seen it happen before, right? So what's your audience doing? And if they're commuted, are they in a hurry? Are they feeling rushed? Do they not have time? Are you going to help solve that problem with them being rushed? Is that where your superpower comes in to help them, right? Or is it something you need to don't address them until lunchtime, right? Are they listening to podcasts on the way in? If so, then pushing out those podcasts early in the morning or even the night before. This way they can download it and take it with them and listen to it on the road, right? Are they making phone calls in the morning so they're being productive during their commute? Is that a good time for you to talk to them, right? How do you find out these things? Well, you have to talk to them. You have to find out. You got to do your research to find out what they're up to. So some of these things you may not know the answer to, but if you start interviewing some of your best clients or some of your favorite clients, your ideal clients, you start getting some of these answers and you can think about, okay, now that I know this, how does this impact how I'm going to do my marketing? Okay. So we looked at whether they're commuting or maybe they've got a lot of responsibilities at work, right? They're attending meetings all day. Like, for example, if people say, I call you and you never answer, I go, yeah, no, I'm usually in a meeting. Phone calls are not the best way to get a hold of me. Chances are I am in a meeting. So you might be one of those people too, in which case, if you're trying to get a hold of me with a phone call, it's going to voicemail 99% of the time. So if you know that about your clients and your ideal clients, what works better? What do they prefer? Is it a text message? I always say I can glance at a text message as I'm going from one appointment to the next. However, I'm not going to have time to listen to a voice message. So don't leave me a long, lengthy voice message because now you're definitely not going to get heard until the end of the day when I have time for it. Right. So know your audience so you know who you're talking to and you know how to talk to them. What's their day look like? Right? Do they have a lot of, do they respond to emails? Do they, normally open their emails at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, right when they get to work, 9 in the morning, right? What kinds of things are they doing during their day? So are they interested in professional development? Is that a culture that's going on who they are, where they work? Is this something that's valued? If you've got professional services that you're wanting to offer or wanting to help people with those professional development topics, right? Are you pitching at a company that encourages that will help invest in that for their company, right? So they want to, upscale their employees, right? So all this, the more you know, the more it impacts things and the more you can take that into consideration while you're putting things together for your marketing. Right? What about, and yeah, we're still working. We're only at lunchtime now. There's more. So at lunchtime, what are they doing? Are they taking a break? Are they having a healthy meal? Are they doing yoga? Are they working out at the gym, right? Are they doing it with meetings and colleagues? Are they just kind of doing group lunches? Are they running errands during that time? So what does your customer do during their lunch? If you don't know, then you might want to do some research, right? How does that play into your business? I don't know. Let's look at your business and explore and find out. Right. So if you are a restaurant and you know that they normally go out to eat or have something delivered, right, and you are next to office buildings and you're a restaurant, you might want to have something where you deliver for them, right? And you can bring the whole thing to the office. Maybe you've got a lunch special that you offer. Some businesses are in a downtown district and they're open for breakfast and lunch, but then they're not open for dinner because most of their business is during the day. Right? And at night, most of the businesses in the area are more the office building style. Most of them are closed, so some of them won't be open during that time because it just doesn't make sense. So look at your numbers, see where they're hanging out. What are they doing? What's their approach? This way you can adjust as necessary. And then we roll into the afternoons. Are they working on their projects? Are they participating in team collaborations? Are they, solving problems? Is afternoons not a good time for them? Or maybe it's the opposite side. Maybe they've structured their day so that they finish work early so they can beat the commute and get home earlier than that. If you work with teachers, right, a lot of times they're in during the day, but they start getting off anywhere from 2:30, 3:30, depending on what's going on, if there's any after school programs. But if you're going to send a newsletter out and you wanted them to be able to access that, right, an earlier time isn't such a bad thing because they're probably maybe grading papers, things like that. So they don't necessarily aren't worried necessarily about being interrupted, right? So there's some opportunities there about the day in the life. What are they doing? Right? So just knowing their routines can really help play in how you might approach things. Right? In the evening, what are they doing? Right? So they're leaving the office. Are they running errands on the way home? They're spending quality time with their family. Are they doing hobbies, leisure activities? Are they a part of any clubs? Right. So are they used to doing things? For example, you'll notice like a lot of the MLMs will do evening meetings because they're assuming that people are working full time during the day and they're trying to build up their MLM business. So they'll do those in the evening. Right. It's one of my problems is I'm like, yeah, no, I just worked all day. I don't want to work all night too. So you got to know your audience and what works for them and appeal to them in a way that makes sense. So if you know they like to run their errands on the way home, and I was just having this conversation recently about how in America we have huge refrigerators. We don't necessarily go to the grocery store every day, right? But if I talk to a friend that's in Europe, it's not unusual. Drop by on the way home, stop by the grocery store, pick up what you're going to eat, go home and cook it, pick up a bottle of wine to go with it, right? I'm like, yeah, the idea of going to the grocery store every day just sounds painful. That's just not something that I want to do. Right. So knowing their patterns and their behaviors and what they're doing. Are you in a country that has siestas, right? A big lunch break, and then people go back and work in the evening, right? Know your culture and who you're working with. As we continue on, now we're in the nighttime. Okay, things are winding down. Or is your audience more likely to be working at nights and then they're working from midnight to 7 a.m., right? I had students when I was teaching that would come into class and they'd sit down in their chair and within 30 minutes they'd be asleep and they're like, Ms. D, should I wake them up? I'm like, nope, they're tired. And talk to them later and you find out like, yeah, they were working the night shift, right? So knowing the patterns of what's going on. Right? Or is it they have a normal standard working schedule? At nighttime, things are winding down. They're preparing for the next day. Are they reviewing their schedules? Are they getting ready for a good night's sleep? Right. So knowing when to appeal. I know for my Facebook audience, a lot of times 7:30 at night, they're eating, they're relaxing, and that's when they're scrolling through Facebook, having a good time and responding to things I've got on there. Right. Whereas my LinkedIn profile, a lot of times it's in the morning that I see a lot of responses. Right. So know your audience and what they're doing so you can adjust accordingly. I know we've learned a lot so far. Right? We've looked at defining those customer personas. We've taken a closer look at the demographics, the psychographics, who they are, what their daily life is looking like. And you're realizing that about now, like this customer persona is a deep dive, and it really is. And it's worth taking the time so that you really understand, because how you approach them is going to have a big impact on your business. You're going to be able to really enhance your target, right? And how you do that, how you reach out to them. You're really going to be able to personalize it more, and you're really going to get the results that you're looking for a lot more once you know your audience and who they are. Right? You want to dive into those. What are their behaviors? What are their values? What are their daily activities? Once you start understanding and really diving into who your audience is, you have opportunities to have an impact with them that you may not have before because you didn't dive quite as deep as you could have. Right. So we explored a little bit segment audience and a little bit more on building your psychographic profiles, right? And exploring the day in the life. But when we think about, okay, how do I do this for my business? So let's take a moment and let's make sure you're set up for success. Some strategies for developing your customer personas, right? So do your market research. Do some gathering, interview some people, do some surveys, industry reports, really understand who that persona is and their behaviors, their pain points. Dive into that for every one of your customer personas, because it's not all one audience, it's multiple audiences when you really look at it. Okay. Create your buyer personas. Build those out, give them a name, right? They're more likely as a, conservative name, right? Is it Jill? Is it Jack? Is it, or is it a name that's unique and beautiful, but you don't know how to pronounce it? Whatever it is, right? We've changed so much as a culture. So who is that buyer? Name them, give them an age, what they look like, what they wear, what they hang out with. Build all that out so that you know who it is, and make sure you've got them tied into the right products. You may realize like, oh, I've been talking to these people about this product, and those don't really match, right? And that might be why you're not getting that sales conversion that you're looking for, because if you're not talking to the right people about the right topics at the right time, you can't convert that sale. So when we think about your customer persona, right, are you analyzing your existing customer data, right? When we're talking about their purchase history, your CRM really needs to be dialed in. This is an opportunity to really get in there tight and make sure you've got tags on everybody. Who are they? What have they purchased? What have they looked at? How active are they? Are they opening your emails? Are they commenting on social media? Right? Everything that they do that interacts with your company is adding points, basically. And so you can have it set up in your CRM. So when they reach this point of interaction, it triggers a different thing that happens. So it's maybe sends a special campaign, sends a special invitation to do something, right? You start seeing that history. You start realizing those data points add up. What do they say on the big picture? So if you're not going in and you're not paying attention to your data and you're not tracking it and you're not examining it, then how are you going to make an educated decision? So we really want to dial in on your CRM. And that's one of my favorite things, because I look at the CRM as the backbone of your business. And if you're not paying attention to it, what's it doing for you? So look at your analytics, whether that's your website, your social media, right, your purchase points, what's going on. Pay attention to those, and that's going to tell you what you need to adjust. And we look at strategies for customer personas, engaging with your customers, right? This is what we're talking about. Make those interviews, focus groups, user testing, in-depth insights. There's nothing worse than launching something and then going, crickets. Oh, maybe they didn't really need what I have. Just because you think it's a good idea, you got to get some feedback on that. It doesn't mean that everybody thinks it's a good idea. And maybe it's a matter of dialing it into a very particular audience segment that's going to be interested in what you have. And there's products out there that I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. I'd never use it. But somebody next to me is like, oh, this is the best thing next to sliced bread. And you're like, okay, glad you're excited about that, right? Finding that right audience, you might have a great product, but it needs to look at who it's for. If it's a great product, but they don't want it, then it wasn't a great product. You have to find your audience that thinks it's a great product, right? So dial that in, do your market research and find out. Right. Are you paying attention, constantly paying attention to the feedback from your clients? I just read a post recently from Magi, which is an AI platform, and Dustin Stout, the CEO, had mentioned about, we heard you, we strayed from our purpose and we're coming back to it, because he was listening to customer feedback. He was realizing that as he was making the AI program more advanced, that it was getting a little too complicated for just your everyday users to come in and use simply. So they said, watch out, the next version's coming out. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. Even as a Power AI user, I understand that making things simple and easy for people to use is so important. So I really look forward to seeing this next version. Right. But pay attention to the feedback, right? If you only get one or two, not such a big deal. But if you start noticing, right, deeper research to find out, how many people are feeling this way, but not telling me, right? And a lot of times your Google reviews are brutally honest. So pay attention to those. You might go, but that may have been an irate customer that you had, but usually there's a grain of truth in there somewhere. So pay attention to it, even if it hurts. The truth hurts sometimes, but wouldn't you rather know, adjust, and adapt than ignore it and then ignore it over and over again to the point that now you've lost your customer stream and you're out of business, right? Listen to your customers. So the other thing, we want to make sure we're aligning our personas with our business goals, right? When you look at your services and what makes sense, you might have people that you like to work with. One of the things I often have to remind my startup businesses is that your ideal client can afford you. If they can't afford you, then they're not your ideal client, because then it's just a donation of your time to serve them. Okay, which is fine if you're maybe in the nonprofit space, but for those that need a viable business, that have business expenses they need to pay, and you need to pay your bills with that, your ideal client can afford you, which is one of the reasons why I was excited to get involved with Momentum Tech, because it now gives me a low price point offer. I mentioned earlier about the AI that will develop your website and help you with your marketing, right? I finally have something that's at low price point, which is perfect for startups. And I got so excited because I don't like turning people away. If I can help them, I will connect them with a resource or some alternative that makes sense for their situation. And so, making sure we align those, because we only have so much time, right? I can only donate so much time. I can only do so much pro bono work. And so I have to balance that out. It's a struggle for me personally, I know, because I love to help. And I know that's true for a lot of our givers. So really, you need to make sure that you're aligning that persona with your business goals. Plan it out. Make sure your personas are tied to what your goals are for your business, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve, who you're trying to help. And you have to ask yourself, sometimes something is a good idea, like, ooh, I really like that, or I resonate with that. And then you have to ask yourself, does that fit my business goal? Then that might not be the where you want to go. And that might not be the customer persona you want to build out, because it doesn't serve where you're at and what your focus is. Okay. So as we move into integrating your customer personas into your business, right, it's going to impact your marketing, your project and product development, your service development, your customer service, your operational efficiency, right, your partnerships, who you're going to collaborate, all that ties together. And so you want to make sure that you've got your customer personas dialed in so you can really apply it and have it move the dial in your business. You really want to be able to customize your marketing and all of your business so that it really meets the needs and preferences of your clients, of your, the behaviors that they're looking for. Make sure that you are set and making this experience a good experience for them through every phase of your business. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that with all the advances we're having right now with artificial intelligence and AI, right, that revolution is here. And so there are opportunities to leverage that. You can get your research a little bit easier, a little bit more accurate. You can ask it to analyze things and upload information to it and say, looking at this, what do you recommend about? And ask it questions. There's ones that literally will adapt and respond and make phone calls for you and make serious customized responses on emails, right? So the AI revolution is here. So if you don't pay attention to it, you're liable to find yourself one day going, how come everybody else is getting such good results and I'm not, right? So don't be afraid to dive into that. If that's an area that makes you nervous, reach out. I'd love to have a conversation with you, because I really want you to be prepared for your business to keep evolving as time evolves. So I'm going to say, book a consultation with me. Once again, my name's Networking Diva, and proud to be the team director here at Giver Marketing. Hop on my calendar, right? networkingdiva.com/book. And that'll get you on my calendar. And I would love to have a conversation with you about your ideal clients, who they are. Are you appealing to them in the best way? Can we get this dialed in deeper for you so that you can figure out ways to really start attracting your ideal client? Because if you're not, right, then what's the point? Throwing a bunch of marketing is kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks, right? This shouldn't be a hit or miss guessing game, right? So let's tie that in with your demographics and really take a deep dive into your clients and see, where's the bottleneck? Where are we running the problems? Why aren't we converting? So let's take a look at that. At Giver Marketing, we have a whole slew of marketers. Our professionals, I think we're up to like 150, almost 200 now. So we have a lot of marketers. Whatever it is that you're needing, chances are I can hook you up with somebody that can help you with that. So feel free, hop on my calendar if it's customer personas you have a question with, if it's strategy, or maybe you've got another marketing need. I'd love to help put you in the direction with people that can help you to succeed, because we're not in business to fail, right? So I'm just going to say thanks for joining me on the broadcast today. Hopefully you learned something and you found this to be valuable. And we do this every Tuesday. If you want us to broadcast to your group, let me know. And then on Wednesdays, we have Networking for Marketers. I love running that group. It's a small, intimate group. Pop in when you want, whenever it's convenient for you. But if that's your space and you want to not be a lonelypreneur, then you want to come hang out with us. So really, you want to hang out and go to, here we go. There it goes. We're going to scroll on the screen. All right. So it's Networking for Marketers, Wednesdays at 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern, or 10 o'clock if you're in Texas in the Central Zone like I am. Go to givermarketing.com/networking, register once, save the link on your calendar, and pop in and say hi to us. We love collaborating. We'll like sharpening each other's iron, right? And work together to help solve problems. Together we do more. So come hang out with us and have a good time. And we look forward to seeing you on next week's Tuesday Marketing Broadcast. Thanks, y'all.